Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Ask Better Questions. I'm your host, Peter Adams, and for those of you who are new here, I have over 20 years experience in leadership and consulting. I'm a published author and a speaker in the leadership space, and my mission is to help excellent leaders like yourselves become exceptional leaders through a better mindset. So in today's episode of Ask Better Questions, we discuss mindfulness from the Latin to know oneself. So before we start the episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Colour4 Solutions. Colour4 Solutions offer leadership training for people who have reached a ceiling in their leadership journey and want to achieve more without dedicating substantial time and effort. So in the spirit of asking better questions, let's start with the most obvious. So what does it mean to know oneself? So knowing oneself in a leadership role involves a deep understanding of one's own personality, strengths, weaknesses, values, beliefs, emotions, and motivations. So there's a lot to unpack there. It goes beyond surface level self-awareness and requires a genuine and continuous effort to explore and reflect on various aspects of one's identity and behavior. Is this something that's going to be solved with a single meditation lesson? No, absolutely not. Would that help? It's a start. I'm not saying it would help, I'm not saying it would hinder, but it's something. You need to be taking more steps towards becoming self-aware. It's a continuous process. So here's a breakdown of what's involved and how one can achieve self-awareness in a leadership role. Okay, so there's personality assessments. I don't put a lot of stock in this. This is why I'm putting it first. Personality assessments are great for discovering how to classify yourself. It's not a great tool for figuring out what to do next. Leaders can start by engaging in personality assessments. Myers-Briggs is a famous one. You've got 5 personality traits in that. Those tools do provide some insights into preferences, tendencies, and how individuals prefer to interact with others. It's not how you're always going to interact, but there's preferences that are exposed through these tools. There's a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Reflecting on personal strengths and weaknesses is crucial, and leaders should identify areas where they excel and where they may need support or development. Now, this analysis helps in leveraging strengths and proactively addressing weaknesses. This is something you should be doing regardless of whether you're a leader or not. If you are a leader, you should definitely be doing this. If you're not, this is part of the journey to becoming one. Values and beliefs exploration. You should have values and beliefs. As a leader, you cannot lead people without values and beliefs. You need to understand what yours are and how they drive you. So understanding one's core values, it's important to align your personal principles with your leadership decisions. Leaders need to reflect on what is truly important to them and how these values guide their actions. Now, there's also emotional intelligence development. So emotional intelligence involves recognizing, understanding, and managing one's own emotions and emotions of others. Leaders can develop emotional intelligence through self-reflection, empathy exercises, and active listening. This is where things like meditation at the start and at the end of every day can help you become better and more aware of your emotional state throughout the day and how that is driving your decisions and your interactions with others. Seeking feedback is another one. Actively seeking feedback from peers, subordinates, mentors, basically people that you work with. Constructive feedback helps to identify blind spots, and that's something we definitely want to avoid. And of course, areas for improvement. But it can also tell you things that others seek and see as strengths that you have that you may not be aware of. I've been in many feedback sessions where I've been told I'm particularly good at something I thought I was pretty average at. But yes, more often than not, seeking feedback is opening oneself to negative feedback. And that's a crucial skill for leaders. You need to be able to take the knocks. People giving you critical feedback are helping you, and you should welcome that feedback. And it should be a matter of course. It's water off a duck's back. If it's not constructive feedback, so be it. But if it is constructive feedback and it's negative, that's fantastic because now you can do something about it. Anyway, so moving on, one of the last ones is, there's a few left, but self-reflection practices. I generally and typically keep a journal, and journaling helps me reflect back on the days that have gone past. Meditation does form part of it, but regular self-reflection is a key component for self-awareness, and being self-aware will help you know thyself. Continuous learning. This is part and parcel with being a great manager and being a great leader. Engaging in continuous learning and professional development helps leaders stay informed about industry trends, helps you do your job better, because your job, if you're doing it right, shouldn't be straightforward and easy. It should be that you're helping people achieve difficult things to achieve, or you won't find a challenge and a reward. So leadership theories, best practice, those sorts of things are things you need to keep abreast of. Now the next one is authentic leadership. Authenticity is very, very difficult. The old adage goes, authenticity, if you can fake that, you're in. And embracing authenticity means being true to oneself and transparent with others. We will get into this further in the latter part of this podcast, but leaders who demonstrate authenticity build trust and credibility, creating a positive organizational culture. There is more to leadership than just generating a great culture. Generating an environment in which your team thrive, which is my definition of leadership, it involves more than just the culture that you're in. But a key component of it is being genuine and being authentic with your team. Life experience integration. This is probably for the more mature of the leadership team out there, but integrating lessons from one's own life experience, both personal and professional, contributes to self-awareness. Leaders should reflect on how past experiences have shaped their values, decisions, and leadership approach. The people that constantly go on about Gen X and Boomers and, Gen Y and Millennials and things like that, they can classify people in these date ranges because there are certain shared experiences that people that were born between certain year sets will have experienced, which shaped their worldviews. So, for instance, the Boomers came after the wars, and therefore they had a shared experience going through that. Gen Xers grew up and, saw the introduction of the internet and things like that. There are certain shared experiences with that. So knowing what one's own life experience has brought to the table makes a huge difference to be able to then know why it is that you're approaching problems the way you do. The way you view risk will be heavily dependent on which of those Gen X, Millennial, Boomer sort of criteria you fit into, because each of those groups view risk very differently as a whole. Now, you personally may view risk completely differently to your peers based on your life experience and what you've gone through, but knowing that and being aware of that and being aware of what other people's views are likely to be based on their life experience is incredibly handy for leadership. And the last one I'm going to touch on today is mentorship and coaching. Seeking guidance from mentors or coaches can provide an external perspective and guidance for self-discovery. Mentors can share their experiences and offer insights that contribute to leaders' self-awareness. I can't tell you the number of times that fellow leaders have mentored me and noticed things about me that I have been completely oblivious to. And their insights have been invaluable because it's not just that they notice it, they notice why, and they notice what results are likely coming from what they've noticed about me. Personality traits, the ways in which I approach and handle conflict, those sorts of things are incredibly important. Now, achieving self-awareness in a leadership role is an ongoing and dynamic process. It is not something that you are going to listen to this podcast and go, fantastic, I can tick that off the list. This is something that you need to continue working on. It's something you need to continue to search for solutions to gain more understanding, which is why over time you should be aiming to become a better leader. Not the best leader, but a better leader constantly. So why is all that important, I guess, is the next question. And so again, in keeping with the spirit of better questions, let's ask a few of those questions. Why is self-awareness critical for effective leadership? Well, it allows leaders to understand their own strengths and weaknesses and values. This knowledge enables them to make informed decisions that lead authentically and adapt their leadership style to different situations. And I cannot emphasize this enough, but understanding oneself contributes to a better decision-making process in leadership roles. It allows you to objectively look at things and know why it is that you're thinking the way you're thinking, and why it is your decisions, why you follow the decision-making process that you do. And it doesn't enable you to exclude biases from your decision-making process, but it allows you to manage them and be conscious of them and consider them in your decision-making process. Things like emotions and motivations and biases are things that you can never remove from a decision-making process, but they're things that you should be aware of when you are making those decisions. So, in what way does knowing oneself enhance a leader's ability to navigate challenges? So, self-aware leaders are better equipped to navigate challenges as they can anticipate the emotional responses, manage stress effectively, and make decisions that align with their values. This contributes to resilience and adaptability, which are key components for effective leadership. And of course, knowing one's strengths and weaknesses and being aware of that allows you to leverage them effectively. So doing a SWOT analysis, whether you're a leader or not, is incredibly important to know where it is that you're lacking and gives you the tools to effectively leverage your strengths without, ignoring, but rather acknowledging those weaknesses, which allows you to then seek support for those areas. And here is a key component. I've written a question here. How does self-awareness contribute to building trust amongst team members in a leadership context? So I can tell you stories of leaders who I know who've demonstrated self-awareness. They are genuinely perceived as authentic and transparent. And that authenticity builds trust, and team members who can rely on a leader, who understand their own limitations and they're open about their intentions. That self-awareness allows you to be open with your team, and that is incredibly important. Now, in what ways does knowing oneself foster empathy and understanding in leadership interactions? Well, those people who are self-aware and leaders who are self-aware can empathize and can use empathy as a tool much more effectively, as they understand their own emotions and how they're relating to things that are happening, and then they can recognize that in others. And this fosters positive and supportive leadership environments. And it's incredibly important to manage your own emotions, and recognizing and managing those emotions is crucial for maintaining composure and making rational decisions. It also sets an example for the team, encouraging emotional intelligence and positive working environments. Now, being able to recognize those emotional triggers and emotional events in other people allows leaders to customize their communication style and effectiveness for an audience. So considering your own biases and being aware of the impact of your words on other people due to being able to identify and effectively communicate ideas based on what your own feelings are in a situation, and identifying that within your team makes you a more effective communicator. Now, it's essential for leaders to understand clearly their values and principles so that you're not compromising those things inadvertently. Understanding one's values and principles helps leaders make ethical decisions and ensure that their actions are aligned with not just the organization's goals and missions, but also one's own. You don't necessarily want to be a Baptist minister working in an adult entertainment industry. I mean, that just is completely inconsistent, right? But that doesn't happen. What instead might happen is that you're working at a company as a member of a church or as a member of a specific group with a specific set of values, and you find that they start doing something that doesn't mesh with you. Now, those are very difficult conversations to have, but you will need to face, as a leader, you need to face that, and you need to go, do I need to be involved in this situation? Or should I instead rather leave, like extract myself from this position, or make the moral stand? You're the leader here. You should make the call as to how it is that you interact with this. Are you looking to make effective change? Do you think effective change is possible? Or instead, do you think it's best to leave the situation and instead work for another organization that perhaps won't have this challenge? And in what ways does self-reflection contribute to continuous improvement? So knowing oneself allows you to identify areas for improvement, and that's clear. But it's not a one-time thing. You don't just have, okay, well, I identified this was a weakness, I've worked on it, it's now no longer a weakness. Well, that may be the case, but it may also be the case that you have identified further areas for development or areas that you could continuously develop. So knowing oneself allows you to continuously improve yourself and your leadership skills. And regular self-reflection allows leaders to identify those areas on a regular basis. This is incredibly important. So I think we've gone a little bit over. I didn't want to overload you with too much information, but continuous improvement is only possible when you do know yourself, when there is more areas for improvement. I think we've covered off very well why it's important to really know oneself. It will help you raise your authenticity with your team, and it will help you and build resilience within you to help you identify in your team strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But there is a lot in this that I would recommend you re-listen to this podcast regularly. And until next week, continue to ask better questions.